same set of clothes, no change, hadn't eaten properly. I was stressed to a whole new level. And what happens? An hour before the shoot, because I worked the previous day and then the night and the next day I had to prepare for the next shoot, I collapse on set. I just collapse. Yeah, I collapsed. They had to rush me to the hospital. I was in the hospital for 2 days.
When he's older, all he's going to remember me is sitting in front of a laptop, right? And not playing with him. That's what he's going to remember.
And then he'll play that song, Cats in the Cradle and the
Oh my god. So apt. So apt.
That should be the opening title of our episode.
Pops in a pod. Pops in a pod.
Hi everyone, Nadir Pop here.
And Peter Pop. We're experimenting with a new set of episodes where Nadir and I share our perspectives on current topics, especially from two dads.
Let us know what you think of it. It's always good to do something different, and you know how Pops in a Pod keeps doing different things. So, well, you know how to reach us. It's popsinapod@gmail.com.
And you can also reach us on social media. Just search for Pops in a Pod. Nadir, have you come across the term quiet quitting?
Who hasn't, Peter? Who hasn't come across this term quiet quitting, right? And first I thought it has something to do with the fact that nobody's giving you work and they have just put you in a corner because that company does not have a firing policy. And I've been through that. Like, I haven't been placed in a corner ever. It's a good thing, but who knows in the future. But that's what I thought, right? That okay, you know, we don't like this guy or girl, and but we can't fire him or her, so let's just put them in a corner, not give them any work. And I just kept thinking that's quiet quitting. And then I started reading. I was like, oh, okay. So TikTok is now telling us what quiet quitting is. I was like, wow, okay, this I need to read.
Honestly, right? Like last week, we did this reel on work-life balance, right? And I was reading up on it more and seeing some of the responses that we got. And then suddenly this term quiet quitting came up, and I was like, okay, what's all of this about, right? And then I realized, wait, it's not what I think, because I thought opposite to what you thought. I thought it's about young people quitting their jobs quietly, like without making a big deal, like very similar to ghosting. So I thought now this is a new term. And then I realized, hang on, this quiet quitting is just basically a new term for work-life balance.
Actually, if you look at it, if you go by the definition, what it means, and this is for the benefit of our listeners who haven't come across that term, quiet quitting is nothing but just a way to tell your superiors or your bosses that this is all that I'm going to do, and I'm not going to stretch myself beyond what I have been given or what I'm responsible for. And honestly, I'm not very torn by this logic, right? Earlier I would have immediately judged, like, how dare you have to work 16 hours a day and you have to do this, you have to do that, right? Like, how are you going to grow in life? How will you be so ambitious in life if you're not going to put in the effort and blah, right? Boy, that it's been so long that I actually now I'm very careful as to the number of hours that I put in, no matter what job I do, including Pops in a Pod.
Yeah, and I think that's the thing, right? I mean, when you think about it, it's a lot of what perspective, I would say, because when you're young, you don't have like a reference point, so to say. I mean, I think we can jump into this. When I was reflecting on the term quiet quitting and I was thinking about it, I was like, hang on, this is what young people are talking about. What was I told when I was working and I was around that age? Let's be honest, I worked at an agency. If you left at 7 o'clock, you were taunted with the statement saying, oh, you're going home half day. Because
Yeah. I remember that.
there was no term hustle also, right? It was just normal work. You showed up to office at 10 or so. And then if you left before 12 hours, it meant, you know, you were working half day. If you pulled those extra hours, it meant you were just doing okay. I know of certain people who worked at the agency with me who I would see the next morning when I showed up would still be in the same clothes, and we would just call it Acha, night mara kya? And that was normal behavior, right? And I think when I reflect back, it's a lot of that conditioning that we went through, right? Where you were not told that, hey, if you take a break or you don't do this extra work, it is okay. What was actually modeled or shown as role model behavior to you was these guys who spent the entire night sitting in office, barely eating, barely sleeping. And let's be honest, right? It wasn't just like a one off incident, it was more than that. Come on, Nadir. You worked in television production. I think you have far more stories than me when it comes to this.
I do. And I think today this whole culture of quiet quitting and this generation taking a stand. I love that, right? Take a stand. Yeah, like okay, this is what I'm going to do. I don't want to do anything beyond this. And I think it's great. Like people are finally standing up for themselves. I think 10-15 years ago, if somebody had to walk up to their bosses and say, I have to go for a birthday party, or I have other personal commitments, or I'm going to only work till 6, there's a very high chance you'll probably get fired from your job, because that's how entertainment industry unfortunately used to work and still does. I'm kind of far removed from it now. It's been 6.5 years, but I think it's still there. And even though the term hustle probably came very recently, but at that time it was all hustling, right? When you're in production and when your show goes live, it doesn't matter who you are, whether you're an AD or a producer or an editor. If there is an emergency or if something is happening live, you just do it. Like whoever's there, you just kind of go ahead and do it, and that's the original
All
hustle
hands on
aspect.
board, right?
Yeah, like so what? You can't go and say I'm just a designer boss. My job is to sit in a computer and design, right? No, just go run on the set, do something, see if something's happening. And it used to happen, and it happened with me as well. There was this one particular moment, obviously, which was a defining moment in my life, and it's very interesting because a gentleman named Shantanu Deshpande went viral for whatever reasons, right? He made that statement that you have to work 18 hours in a day when you are starting off your career, and obviously it sparks a massive debate
Yeah.
on LinkedIn and various other social media platforms. And my initial reaction was, okay, this dude, he's an entrepreneur, obviously he's going to push his people to put in those extra hours, because they must be having some kind of a threshold that they have to reach in a limited time, all of that. And I gave it a very balanced view, right? Took me back to 2010, 2011, when I was producing a show, and I worked straight 36 hours,
Wow.
barely slept. Max, I would have gotten an hour, 2 hours of sleep. And as you mentioned that, अरे नाइट मारा क्या, घर पे नहीं गया, सेम कपड़े में. That was me.
Yeah.
Same set of clothes, no change, hadn't eaten properly. I was stressed to a whole new level. And what happens, an hour before the shoot, because I worked the previous day and then the night, and the next day I had to prepare for the next shoot, I collapse on set. I just collapse. Yeah, I collapsed. They had to rush me to the hospital. I was in the hospital for 2 days. And my then girlfriend, now wife, uh, came, visited me. She was very normal. She was very okay. And she's like, is this how you're going to work? And I was like, no, it's the first time it's happened to me. It's like, first of probably many if you continue doing this work. And I didn't understand what she meant by that. So I was like, what do you mean? It's like, if this is going to continue, and if this is your line of work and this is how you plan to build your career, then I think let's just agree that I don't want any part of this life, right? Because I am a very time to time person, a very 9 to 5, 9 to 5:30, because I respect my personal life a lot, and I like to be doing things with my family and not be stuck at work or do anything related to work. Like she's that kind of a person who won't even take calls after 6, because that efficiency plays such an important role. And in production, nobody cares about efficiency, right? Because they just assume, oh, you didn't do it in 8 hours. It's okay. Do it in the next 3 hours, 4 hours before, the break of dawn. And that's how we worked. So it took me another human being to shake me up and say, this is not the right life. What are you doing? You can't be doing this. You can't sustain this, right? And after, when you read stuff like 30-year-olds and 35-year-olds or whatever sub 40-year-olds dropping because of heart attacks, well, that could have been me.
Yeah, yeah. There are a couple of things that came to mind, right? And it wasn't just the entrepreneur you mentioned. There were other entrepreneurs who were talking about this entire hustling thing and stuff like that, right? And how you kind of deal with employees. And I think that balance, let's be honest, has shifted from the years that we started our career out, right? People are far more aware, there's far more information available to you. And I think the role models also have changed, which I was kind of talking about earlier, right? Like, you actually probably at this point, I hope in a lot of organizations, there's a person that would actually tell you that, listen, you don't have to pull an all nighter. It's okay. Like, if you don't work through the night on this particular project or this particular thing, nothing's going to change. Everyone's still going to be there in the morning, but you are going to be there with fresher mind and fresh thoughts, right? So I hope at least that's kind of changed. And that's one thing I've been very particular about, right? I mean, like, when you talk about this, I remember a time when I worked at an event management company, and I used to work on music festivals. And for me, that was my dream job, right? I would be traveling to different cities and things like that. And you're literally running on fumes, as they say, because you're barely sleeping. Uh, and this was even the start of, like, what we call now digital, right? Like, people were still calling it social media and Web 2.0 and stuff. So you can kind of get things done. But yeah, man, it takes a toll on you, because, like, you, when you pull off those 3-4 days, like, you were in hospital. I never faced those situations, but you did literally need the entire weekend. But on this scenario, you were working over the weekends, right? So your entire schedule is skewed because you're working weekends because it's events. Then when everyone else is back working, you're just like kind of recuperating. And at some point, because you're working nights, you're just like, okay, what is night, what is day? All those lines kind of just blur for you, right? And I think another reason why I really like what's happening right now is because there's a debate of what's the balance. And I think for us, in our heads back in the day, there was no balance, right? I mean, one initial thought also that came in my mind is that, hey, at this point, I do not need to be traveling 6-8 hours in a train or whatever mode of transport, right? When I could actually be spending that more productively working out of places closer to home or from my house. And at this point, I would rather even sacrifice that 1-2 hours of travel to spend time with my son, right? Because that immediately, if I'm spending whatever amount of hours extra at work, I'm not spending that with my son. And I think that has completely changed my perspective also, right? Now that we're parents, is that how much are you actually giving? I mean, you've got people at home, people are expecting you, right? Because, like, my son has reached that age, I don't know about your daughter, where he literally says that you're working too much. Or when he sees my laptop done, he's like, are you done work? And I think it's those subtle things that you just need to remember, where you're like, hey, who am I really doing this for at the end of the day, right? Like, I'd rather spend time with him in the present than say that, I'll hustle or whatever and then later spend time with him. Because when he's older, all he's going to remember me is sitting in front of a laptop, right? And not playing with him. That's what he's going to remember.
And then he'll play that song, Cats in the Cradle and the Silver.
Oh my god. So apt. So apt.
That should be the opening title of our episode. But there are two things I want to say. And since you brought up the whole aspect of us being dads and how we kind of look forward to, I'll start with that. So very, very valid point. Today, I'm so conscious of the fact that even if I have to work from home, or rather when I'm working from home, the last 2 years have been horrid, right? Nobody knew when to stop working. Your calendar looks like virtual meetings back to back because travel time is cut down. So you just jump from one call to another call. and you're in the comforts of your home, so that's fine, and your kids around, your wife's around, family's around, so it kind of, you thought you were balancing it, right? But then you realize it's just getting worse. So I also make a very conscious effort that when my daughter comes back from school, and now she comes back late in the evening at around 4:30, I try and be a part of as many activities as possible, right? If I'm at home working, or if it's even if I'm in office and I have to come back home, I ensure that those couple of hours I try not to do anything, right? 99% I'll probably not even start work later in the evening as well, because you need to sort of wind down, you need that time to think, you need to sleep over certain things so that you can make decisions, better decisions, the next day. And it's backed by science. You cannot refute this anymore, right? If they all say that if there's a problem, just sleep over it, you might find the answer the next day.
Yeah.
And I think that is so essential, your health. And we've done a couple of episodes on this, Peter, where sleep, they keep talking about sleep, how important sleep is. This is not something that I want to pride myself in saying, oh, you know what, I work for 18 hours a day and I barely sleep. I don't want to be that guy, dude. I'm going to kill myself. My heart is going to get weaker, my brain is going to get number. What's the point? If I don't rest my body and my mind, I just become less and less efficient, and it just kind of breaks down. So from a parenting father aspect, I try and ensure that my daughter doesn't pick up these habits later on, because she thinks it's normal. Cats in the
Yeah.
cradle and the silver. Right? And the second aspect is that, what are the learnings, what are our learnings, right? When we were hustling and working those crazy hours in a day, is the fact that I'm never going to expect my team to be like that, right? There are certain people who will go out of their way to do these things because they probably love it and they're workaholics and everything, and I get it. But every time I try and make it a point where I jump in and say, okay, you don't have to do this at 9. Why are you sending mails at 9? Who the hell's going to read it? Even I'm not going to read it. Who's going to read
Yeah.
it? Right? What's the point? You can wait till morning, or if you want to just schedule it, and if it goes out in the morning, it's great. What's happening is that if you send an email at 9 o'clock, you're just creating more and more anxiety for the other stakeholders who'll probably see it at 9 o'clock.
And
And
it's a ripple effect, right?
exactly, it's just going to cause more anxiety. Like, oh my god, why did you send this mail now? Is it very urgent right now? Can I go? No, there's no point. And I'm not saying I don't do it. Yes, sometimes I also do it, but very lately, I have started getting in the habit of just scheduling my emails so that I don't stress
Yeah.
other people out, right? Because I think even that is a part of the whole stress culture. That fine, you've switched off, you've managed to back off, you are not working, somebody else is working, but your phone is always going to be in your hand, right? And you'll keep getting pinged all the time, notification, notification, notification. So what I have done in the last couple of years, I have killed all my notifications, whether it's WhatsApp,
Oh, yeah.
whether it's mails. All my notifications are killed. I will check my phone once in half an hour, once in 45 minutes. I'll see everything important. Okay, great. Not important. Okay, set it aside. Peace of mind. I'm feeling so
So-
much better now.
I have to double recommend what you said, right? Like, for everyone listening in, I think that light bulb movement for me was a few years ago when I disabled notifications from all apps. And I'm telling you, it feels so strange because we're so programmed, right? And even conditioned our mind to those dopamine hits, like those likes, those whatever that you keep getting, or those notifications you keep getting from the shopping apps and things like that. Like, spend one day without them, and you're just like, wow, what is my life? Like, literally, I felt like that at some point, right? But yeah, I think killing notifications on apps is a great thing. I have to give a shout out to actually someone I'm working with right now, right? Is that literally, if you message or he messages you at like 8 p.m., which rarely happens, it's like it doesn't need to be taken care of. It can be done tomorrow. And there are absolutely no work messages on the weekend, which is kind of like, okay, like, it's disorienting for the first couple of weeks, right? Because you're like, wow, I'm not getting any messages on the weekend about work. Like, is this normal even? But it's because, in comparison to wherever I've worked before, I've always managed to get like messages. If not on a Sunday, at least Saturday you'd end up getting messages. And then you just suddenly have like no messages on Saturday or Sunday, and you're like, okay, this is what life should be like, but it isn't.
And also, I think the whole other angle of quiet quitting, which perhaps people are not realizing, or they've realized it and they're just not going deeper enough, is that it is okay to have a life outside work.
Yeah,
You have to explore other opportunities outside work, right? I mean, we've gone to gigs a couple of times together. You've done it far more than I have. Concerts, music concerts, right? And when I'm there as part of the audience, when I'm looking at people and I'm thinking, wow, what a talent. I'm sure I really want to know what he does for his day job, because, well, we know the kind of music that we like doesn't really pay in India. So our first mind is, I really wonder what he does as his day job, right? Which means he or she is doing all that work during the day, but outside of that, this is their life, and it's so cool.
yeah,
That's the other part of their personality. So I don't see anything wrong in being a quiet quitter or balancing work life or whatever it is, right? Because you want that, that's not your only personality. You cannot possibly be defined or known just for your work. You should be known for other things as well, whether you're a parent or you're a musician or you're a race car driver or whatever it is, right? It's always good to have that split, and it's so important for your mind as well. It's so refreshing, right? And I encourage people to do that. Both of us teach in the same college, and it's a part of my routine, irrespective of what class there is. I always tell them, just make sure that you always hone other skills as well, and it doesn't necessarily need to be part of your job. You can do something completely different, pick up a
yeah.
instrument, play a sport, whatever it is, but just do something outside as well. That's how you be healthy.
Start a podcast.
And sustain it for 3 years.
Yeah, no, it blows my mind when I think about it. Right, is that when we started the podcast, we didn't think of all of this, and strangely enough, after so many years of respectively working, both of us, we've got known for being podcasters than our day jobs, right?
I think we should have a contest on social media and say, what does Nadir and Peter do? Let's see the kind of answers we get. But
But
that's great. That's the point.
yeah, and I think, just to build on what you said earlier, right, before derailing it with the podcast aspect, is I think it's, and I'm sure there's a lot of science to back this up, is just the fact that, when you do certain activities for leisure, for me, it's music, for certain people, it's sport, someone, it's just like going for walks, appreciating art, and things like that, right? All that kind of rounds you as a person. It also puts that mind of yours to a bit of ease, right? Where your mind literally switches from just that focus to like probably just unfocused part, right? And I think it's that balance that you need to maintain, which when I look back, honestly, I feel a bit guilty about in my early 20s, right? Where I was just so focused, so like driven. I mean, a term I always use is like, you've got the blinkers on. You're just like, no, this is the only way. And unfortunately, we didn't have, or at least in my case, I didn't have somebody who told me that, you know what, do whatever you want to do, man. Like, it's fine. Like, I think, like, for me, I was pretty bullish on the aspect of enjoying music and going for concerts and stuff like that. So that has kind of stuck around. But I wish I learned, a hobby, or picked up more art and creative stuff, because I think at the age that we're reached right now, picking up certain skills are harder, right, than easier.
Or even if you don't want to have a hobby or a passion, build relationships, because I think that's something that people are, at least this generation, don't even have time for that,
Oh,
right? Like getting
trust me.
married, having kids, that's a far dream. I think just being in a relationship, that seems like your other work, right? And that also requires a lot of patience. It requires a lot of work. It's just a partnership, and yeah,
Yeah.
start working towards that, I guess.
And to just wrap up, right, I thought it'll be great to kind of dig into what our Instagram community talked about, right? Especially when we put up the reel about work-life balance. And we got some interesting responses. So I thought I'll highlight a few of them. One with kids instead of quantity, right? And I think that's something that we've talked about in the past. I mean, having a no phone time before bed and things like that. And also it kind of, helps you reassess your career and life priorities, which I think is important, right? I mean, we've kind of highlighted that. But really, when you think about it, and I love how this response ends saying, you deeply question your stress levels and what is truly worth it, which I think kind of highlights what we talked about at the start of our conversation totally, right?
Absolutely. And today, people are so much more aware of mental health, and they realize what is causing them, mental stress. And it's clear. I don't want to point it out, but yeah, as long as you know it's good for you, and then you start, managing that in whatever way you can. Another person did mention about, building in efficiencies at their work schedules. Practice better time management. I think that's so important, because it's so easy to get distracted on, going on Instagram reels, checking out what other people are saying, and then suddenly you're like, oh my god, 1 hour gone, how did that happen? So yeah, time management, and then yeah, contingency plans. I don't think anyone works towards a plan anymore. This is like, oh, okay, boss has said it, let's do this, right? It's like, just go. So yeah, I think these three things very interesting. I like the way it was.
Yeah, and we got another response which I think is quite interesting also. Is it says, I don't think there's a perfect balance. There will be guilt on both sides. And I think they're talking mainly about like the parent and kid relationship. And I think, yeah, I think that's the hard part, right? Like, if you focus on the guilt, but look at it more from a perspective of the process and working continuously at it, right? Because if you focus on the guilt, you're always going to get kind of stuck in there, right? So I think really it's a process, and I think, at least from my personal experience, it's something that you just constantly need to keep at it, right? You can't just say that, you know what, this is too much for me to handle, I give up.
No, true. And I'm sure there are a lot of other people out there who are practicing their own ways of balancing lives or quiet quitting. And kudos to them. Good luck. And I genuinely hope that they manage this and they get somewhere in life, both personally and professionally. So, if you guys have a comment on this, or you all want to share something with us regarding quiet quitting, or how it very quietly entered your personal life, then yeah, please share it with us. We'd love to know. And write to us on popsinapod@gmail.com, or you can just search for popsinapod on Instagram, and we'll be right there. We've started putting out some very interesting content now in the form of reels. So if you like it, if you agree with it, if you have some interesting thing to comment on those reels, then yeah, go ahead and do that.
Right, that's a wrap on this episode. We'll see you guys next week.
See you, and thank you.
Hey Becky, do you like this beat?
I'm into faster stuff lately, like Xfinity that gives me beyond gig speeds.
What about this then?
Powerful, just like Xfinity.
Restrictions apply. Actual speeds vary, not guaranteed. Requires compatible Xfinity gateway. Limited quantities available.